Every day, we see the darker side of the world around us. We witness how people can hurt others in ways that are hard to understand. It's a sad part of life, but it's something we can't ignore. As someone who dives into the world of crime, I'm here to share the most shocking stories and try to understand what drives people to do such things. I'm Michael, and today, I've got another unreal true crime story for you. On the morning of August 18th, 1993, everything seemed normal at an apartment complex in Mission Viejo, California. But behind one door, something unthinkable had happened. Jim Peng, a successful businessman, had just returned from a business trip and decided to visit his mistress Jennifer and their baby boy, Kevin. When no one answered the door, he didn't think much of it at first. But when he finally stepped inside, what he saw changed everything. The scene he walked into wasn't just shocking, it was devastating. It would set off a chain of events that exposed secrets, lies, and a tragedy no one could have imagined. What really happened in that apartment? And who could have done something so terrible? As the investigation unfolded, the truth turned out to be more complicated than anyone expected. Lisa Peng was a woman born in Taiwan in the early 1950s. Lisa was described as a determined and hard-working young woman, and her life took a significant turn in 1967 when she met Jim Peng. Jim, born in Taiwan in 1945, was her supervisor at a Taiwanese financial firm. The two quickly formed a connection, and after nearly 5 years of courtship, they married. Around 1973, the couple welcomed their first child, a daughter, and 4 years later, they were blessed with a son. Although Lisa's career before marriage is unclear, some reports suggest she left her professional life behind to focus on raising her children and managing their household. She also supported Jim in building his business, which started as a modest company but eventually grew into a multi-million-dollar international electronics enterprise. Jim's company, which sold radio systems to police organizations across Asia and other regions, amassed significant wealth in both mainland China and Taiwan. By the 1980s and 1990s, his net worth was estimated at $200 million, the equivalent of nearly $500 million today. The Peng family lived a life of luxury, enjoying the privileges that came with their financial success. To expand his business ventures, Jim relocated the family to Orange County, California, settling in a beautiful home in Rancho Santa Margarita. Despite this move, his company's main operations remained in Asia, and Jim frequently traveled to Taiwan and China for business. By 1992, after more than 2 decades of marriage, Lisa and Jim were seen as a highly successful couple. Their teenage children attended private schools, and the family appeared to have reached the pinnacle of prosperity. However, during one of his many business trips to Asia, Jim's life took a new direction. While staying at a luxurious hotel where he often held meetings and attended investment events, he met a young, strikingly beautiful woman named Jennifer. Born in 1968 in a coastal region of China, Jennifer was an elegant, tall, and educated woman working in public relations at the hotel. Her family background remains mostly private, with only the names of her father, Shi Suo Shuang, and one sister, Jacqueline Shi, known. During a hotel event, Jennifer inadvertently blocked Jim's view. When he politely asked her to move, the brief interaction led to an introduction. Jennifer, recognizing the distinguished businessman, offered her assistance. This small exchange captivated Jim, who was 49 at the time, and he soon fell in love with the 24-year-old Jennifer. Despite the significant age gap, Jim and Jennifer began a romantic relationship. Upon returning home to his wife and children in California, Jim continued to see Jennifer during his trips to Asia. About a year after their initial meeting, he arranged for Jennifer to move to California and settled her in an apartment in Mission Viejo, conveniently close to his family home. Their relationship evolved into a more stable and consistent arrangement, with Jim leading a double life and dividing his time between his family and Jennifer. Jim's infatuation with Jennifer quickly escalated, disrupting the delicate balance of his double life. Deeply in love with her, Jim sought every opportunity to be near Jennifer. To make this possible, he hired her as a personal assistant or a staff member at his company, ensuring she was constantly by his side. Jim's level of commitment went beyond providing her with an apartment and covering all her expenses. He even granted her a third of the shares in one of his subsidiary companies. Despite these gestures, Jennifer grew dissatisfied with being the other woman and began pressuring Jim to divorce Lisa and make their relationship official. This marked the beginning of significant tensions. Jim, a traditional man, viewed divorce as a cultural taboo that conflicted with his deep-rooted Chinese values. Beyond tradition, the financial implications loomed large. A divorce could potentially leave Lisa with half his fortune or more, including substantial alimony for their children. Though Lisa initially appeared unaware of her husband's affair, subtle changes in Jim's behavior raised suspicions. After his business trips, Lisa began finding women's clothing among his belongings, sometimes in his suitcase, other times in his gym bag. When confronted, Jim brushed off her concerns, claiming the clothes belonged to a colleague who must have mistakenly placed them there. While unconvinced, Lisa chose to ignore the issue for a time. However, as the months passed, the pattern persisted. More clothing appeared, and Lisa became convinced that Jim was unfaithful, likely with someone from his office. Reports suggest Lisa discreetly spoke with company employees to confirm her suspicions. Eventually, she uncovered the truth and one day visited Jim's workplace, where she met Jennifer in person. The encounter left Lisa devastated. Jennifer was strikingly beautiful and significantly younger than her. Despite the shock, Lisa attempted to reason with Jennifer, asking her to end the relationship. Jennifer, however, refused, declaring her love for Jim and her unwillingness to leave him. Feeling powerless, Lisa watched as the situation worsened over time. Reports claim that after their confrontation, Jennifer began leaving her clothing intentionally at the Pang family home, an act that infuriated Lisa. In one instance, Lisa cut Jennifer's clothes into pieces with scissors and confronted Jim, demanding he end the affair. She even threatened to harm Jennifer if the relationship continued. Jim, however, remained indifferent to her anger. Another turning point came when Lisa devised a plan to catch them in the act. While visiting her family in Taiwan, she returned home earlier than expected without informing Jim. Upon arrival, she discovered women's lingerie on her own bed. Shortly afterward, Jim and Jennifer entered the house together, clearly comfortable and prepared to settle in. When Lisa confronted them, Jennifer coldly responded that, as far as she understood, the house wouldn't be Lisa's for much longer. Lisa had hoped for remorse or shame from Jennifer but found none. Instead, the confrontation escalated into a physical altercation between the two women. Jim remained passive, refusing to intervene. When Lisa demanded he end the affair and fire Jennifer, he refused once again. Despite the chaos, Jim continued to reject the idea of divorce or moving out, leaving Lisa trapped in an increasingly unbearable situation. The situation reached its peak in March 1993, when Jennifer gave birth to a son, Kevin Pong. The news of the birth marked a breaking point for Lisa, as it symbolized the ultimate betrayal. How and when Lisa learned about the child remains unclear, but Kevin's arrival irrevocably altered the dynamic, solidifying Jennifer's presence in Jim's life and leaving Lisa to grapple with a deep sense of betrayal. Jim had already proven that Jennifer wasn't just a fleeting affair, and this deeply wounded Lisa. But she never imagined he would go as far as having a child with another woman. This revelation was too much for Lisa to bear, and she decided that confronting them wasn't enough. She needed to take decisive action to end the situation. On August 18, 1993, Jim returned from a business trip and decided to visit Jennifer and their 5-month-old son, Kevin. When he rang the doorbell of her apartment, no one answered. Assuming they might have gone out for a walk, he waited for a few hours at the building manager's office before returning. Once again, there was no response. Acting on instinct, he turned the doorknob and was startled to find it unlocked, a rare occurrence as Jennifer always locked the door. Stepping into the apartment, Jim was met with a horrifying scene. Jennifer's lifeless body lay face down on the couch, covered in blood. Panicked, he immediately called the police. When officers arrived, Jim explained that he hadn't dared to go beyond the living room and that the silence in the apartment made him fear the worst for his son. The officers began their search and, tragically, found Kevin's lifeless body in one of the bedrooms. A blanket had been placed over his face, leading investigators to believe he had been suffocated. Despite being devastated, Jim cooperated with the police, explaining that Jennifer was his mistress and Kevin was their son. He also disclosed that he had come directly to the apartment after flying in from Taiwan. As investigators processed the scene, Jennifer and Kevin's bodies were sent to the Orange County Coroner's Office for autopsies. Forensic experts found no signs of forced entry, leading them to believe Jennifer had willingly opened the door to her attacker. Soon, detectives discovered Jim's double life, a devoted husband of over 20 years with 2 teenage children, who was also the father of Jennifer's child. Jim's connection to the victims and the fact that he was the one who discovered the bodies made him the prime suspect. However, Jim passed a polygraph test and provided evidence confirming his alibi. He had been traveling until the day he found the bodies. This eliminated him as a suspect. The autopsy results revealed Jennifer had suffered 18 stab wounds, while Kevin had been smothered with a blanket. Additionally, investigators found a bite mark on Jennifer's arm. Saliva from the mark was sent to a lab for DNA analysis. Given the brutal nature of the attack, authorities suspected it was a crime of passion and turned their attention to Lisa, the third person in the love triangle. At the time, Lisa was in Taiwan, but Jim, cooperating with authorities, persuaded her to return to the United States to provide a statement. In January 1994, Lisa arrived at the Orange County Sheriff's Office, where she was interrogated for nearly 9 hours. She denied any involvement in the murders but was required to provide a DNA sample. When the results came back, they revealed a perfect match with the saliva from the bite mark on Jennifer's arm. Despite this, Lisa continued to deny her guilt. In an unexpected twist, Jim expressed guilt over the situation and stood by Lisa, offering his support. However, when police requested he speak to her privately, he agreed. The couple had a conversation in one of the interrogation rooms, unaware it was being recorded. Speaking in Mandarin, Lisa reportedly told Jim that what happened was the result of his infidelity. When Jim asked her directly why she had killed Jennifer, Lisa admitted to going to the apartment to confront her, which escalated into a heated argument. She claimed Jennifer fell onto a sharp object during the fight and maintained it was self-defense. Regarding Kevin, it is believed Lisa couldn't bear the thought of the child as a reminder of Jim's betrayal. Police interpreted Lisa's statements during the conversation as a confession and arrested her for the double homicide. The Asian community in Orange County and those familiar with the scandalous affair were divided in their reactions. Some sympathized with Lisa, believing she was pushed to her breaking point by the betrayal and humiliation. Others viewed her as the perpetrator of an unthinkable act, leaving a community in shock over the tragic end of a love triangle spiraling out of control. Some Taiwanese women showed their solidarity with Lisa Peng by attending her first court hearing, carrying yellow flowers and signs of support. While the case received standard media coverage in the United States, it became front-page news in Asia, particularly in Taiwan and China. Reporters from those regions portrayed Lisa as a betrayed and abandoned wife, while Jennifer was often depicted as a gold digger, intent on advancing her relationship with a wealthy lover to enjoy a lavish lifestyle in the U.S. The media frenzy in Asia was so intense that the case was compared to the O.J. Simpson trial, with its mix of jealousy, violence, two victims, and significant DNA evidence. After giving his initial statement, Jim returned to Taiwan and chose to remain there throughout the trial, refusing to testify against his wife. Speculation arose that guilt over indirectly causing the tragedy drove his decision. Lisa's defense team shifted the blame onto Jim, suggesting he might have attacked Jennifer and Kevin upon his return. However, the investigation conclusively ruled him out. In 1995, 2 years after the murders, Lisa's first trial began. The jury struggled to reach a verdict, and the trial ended in a mistrial. By the time of her second trial in 1996, the case had attracted even more public attention. The judge presiding over the trial reportedly received over 400 letters, many pleading for leniency. Among them was a letter from Jim, as well as one from Lisa herself, in which she described herself as a poor, unfortunate woman abandoned by God. Ultimately, the jury found Lisa Peng, then 46, guilty of first-degree murder in the deaths of Jennifer and her 5-month-old son, Kevin Peng. During the sentencing hearing, family members of the victims gave emotional impact statements. Through an interpreter, Jennifer's father called the crime heinous and unforgivable, and lamented that Lisa had shown no mercy, not even to an innocent infant. Jennifer's sister, who flew in from China, also spoke tearfully about the profound grief her family endured. She expressed relief that Lisa would spend the rest of her life in prison, calling it the only appropriate punishment for such a crime. Lisa was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Her defense team immediately announced plans to appeal the verdict. 3 years later, the case took a dramatic turn. On September 30th, 1999, an appeals court overturned Lisa's 1996 conviction, citing constitutional violations. The court found that Lisa had not been informed of her Miranda rights during her arrest, was misled into speaking with her husband in what she thought was a private conversation that was secretly recorded, and was denied legal counsel during her interrogation. In January 2000, the California Supreme Court upheld the appeals court's decision, granting Lisa a new trial. The announcement of a retrial reignited public debate. Media outlets and Lisa's supporters continued to call for a reduced sentence, arguing that she had been pushed to her breaking point by Jim's betrayal. Reports suggested that on August 18, 1993, the pain of her husband's infidelity had driven Lisa to confront Jennifer, leading to an argument that spiraled out of control. Amid growing concerns that the jury might once again struggle to reach a verdict, the prosecution decided to offer Lisa Peng a plea deal. Under the agreement, she would plead guilty to 2 lesser charges in exchange for a significantly reduced sentence. The terms included an 11-year prison sentence, after which she would be deported to Taiwan with a lifetime ban from returning to the United States. On June 29, 2001, Lisa Peng, then 51 years old, accepted the deal and pleaded guilty to 2 counts of voluntary manslaughter. The judge sentenced her to 2 concurrent 11-year terms, with credit for time served since her arrest. Just 6 months later, Lisa was granted parole. Upon her release from prison, she was immediately placed into the custody of U.S. immigration authorities for deportation. On July 1, 2001, Lisa arrived at Taipei Airport in Taiwan, where agents from the Criminal Investigation Bureau awaited her. After several hours of questioning, she was released. Despite being tried 3 times and convicted in the United States for the killings of Jennifer and her infant son, Kevin Peng, Lisa faced potential prosecution in Taiwan. According to Taiwanese law, citizens convicted of serious crimes abroad can be retried upon returning to their homeland. However, as of November 2024, no records indicate that Lisa was ever prosecuted in Taiwan. Lisa Peng disappeared from the public eye after her release. Her current whereabouts remain unknown and no information has surfaced about her children. By November 2024, it was presumed that, if still alive, Lisa would be around 74 years old, likely living a quiet, anonymous life in Taiwan. As for Jim, the tragedy marked the beginning of a steep personal and professional decline. He publicly admitted that the events had cost him everything. The scandal, which dominated headlines for years in the United States, Taiwan, and China, turned the Asian community against him, with many blaming him for the circumstances that led to the tragic deaths of Jennifer and Kevin. Although he was never implicated in the crime, the role he played in the events leading up to it left a lasting stain on his reputation. In 1997, Jim faced additional legal trouble when his company was sued in a U.S. court for allegedly importing radio equipment illegally. Under the pressure of the case, a plea agreement was reached, and while the charges against Jim personally were dropped, his U.S.-based corporation pleaded guilty. The company's Shanghai division was ordered to pay $990,000 in penalties. Jim was also sued by Jennifer's parents, who sought $2 million in damages. They argued that Jim had been aware of the escalating conflict between the 2 women and had a duty to provide protection for Jennifer and Kevin. The outcome of this lawsuit remains unclear. The case of Lisa Peng had all the hallmarks of a real-life dark drama: infidelity, betrayal, wealth, greed, jealousy, and vengeance. Nearly 2 decades later, it continues to spark debates about justice, morality, and the limits of human emotion. While many condemned Lisa for her unforgivable acts, others sympathized with her, believing she was driven to the edge by the heartbreak and humiliation inflicted upon her. Her story remains a haunting reminder of the devastating consequences of betrayal and unchecked passions. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.